Welcome to the Prevent Project podcast. Today, we're diving into a topic that, well, it's been on everyone's minds lately, especially after what happened in Valencia, Spain.
Yeah.
Those flash floods. Really just a stark reminder of how powerful nature can be, and how important it is to find solutions to prevent this kind of tragedy.
It is.
Our hearts go out to everyone affected by those floods.
Absolutely.
But that's really what we're here to explore today.
Mm-hmm.
How can technology help us prevent or at least try to minimize the damage from these disasters? But I think before we get into the solutions, it's important to understand, what causes these flash floods in the first place.
Right.
So can you walk us through what happened in Valencia?
So the Valencia event, it was caused by something meteorologists call gota fria.
Gota fria.
Yeah, it means cold drop, and basically what it is a mass of cold air that collides with warm, moist air.
Okay.
And in this case, that happened over the Mediterranean.
So you have this clash of, temperatures?
Exactly. And that clash creates, the perfect conditions for just intense, massive rainfall.
And in Valencia, that's exactly what happened. They got way more rain than they were expecting.
Way more. Rivers overflowed, streets were completely flooded, and tragically, a lot of people lost their lives.
Yeah.
Especially in a town called Paiporta. And, the Spanish meteorological agency, AEMET, they actually called it the worst gota fria to hit that region this century.
Wow.
So it really shows how crucial it is to find ways to mitigate these events, to try to lessen their impact.
Yeah, for sure. It really makes you think. It makes you wonder, though, are these gota frias, are they the main cause of flash floods, or are there other things that can cause them?
Well, they're definitely a big factor, especially in places like around the Mediterranean. But flash floods can happen for all sorts of reasons, actually. Sometimes you just get so much rain that it overwhelms rivers and streams. That's especially true in mountainous areas where the terrain kind of funnels the water really quickly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I imagine the landscape plays a role, too. Some areas are just more vulnerable to flooding than others, right?
Oh, for sure. Think about dry soil. Soil that's really compacted. It's almost like concrete. The water can't soak in, so it just runs off the surface.
Uh-huh.
And then on the other hand, you have urban areas with all that concrete and pavement everywhere.
Yeah.
Same problem. The water can't soak in, it just sheets off and overwhelms the drainage systems.
So whether it's natural or man-made, it seems like anything that stops the water from being absorbed can lead to these flash floods.
Exactly. And then, of course, you have less common, but just as devastating events like when a dam fails.
Right.
You get a sudden surge of water downstream, or rapid snowmelt in the spring can overwhelm rivers too. Even something as simple as a clogged drain can make things worse, especially in cities.
So it really is a combination of things, this complex mix of factors that can trigger these floods. But that kind of brings us to the heart of what we want to talk about today. Can technology offer any hope in predicting, managing, or even preventing these disasters?
Well, technology is not a silver bullet, but it's definitely becoming a crucial tool. One of the most promising areas is using artificial intelligence, or AI, to predict these events.
AI, predicting floods. Tell me more about that.
Okay, so imagine a system that can take in huge amounts of data, like real-time data from satellites, radar, buoys, weather stations all over the world. It's basically like having this super-powered meteorologist working 24/7.
Wow.
And it can analyze it all super fast.
So the AI is basically looking for patterns that humans might miss. Is that it?
Yes. It can see those subtle changes in atmospheric conditions, identify those developing weather systems like the gota frias we talked about, and even look back at historical data to see what conditions usually come before a flash flood.
So it's like the AI is learning from past floods to predict future ones.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes beyond just numbers. The AI can also process visual data from satellites and radar, so it can actually see those weather patterns developing, even ones that humans might miss.
So it can identify potential problems before they even become full-blown storms.
That's the goal. And if it can predict the path of a storm and how bad it might be, then we can send out more targeted warnings, give people more time to prepare.
Right. Because even a few hours' notice can make all the difference.
Right, absolutely.
So AI is not just making the predictions more accurate, but also faster, which is so important when you're dealing with something as fast-moving as a flash flood.
Exactly. But predicting a flood is only half the battle.
Right.
We also need to know what's happening on the ground, in real time, and that's where the Internet of Things comes in.
Okay, the Internet of Things. or IoT.
Mm.
I've heard that term, but how does that apply to floods?
Think of it as a network of sensors. They're strategically placed in areas that are prone to flooding, and they're constantly collecting data about the water levels, how fast the water is moving, even the water quality. It's like having a finger on the pulse of the river or stream.
So it's like going beyond just those general predictions and getting a really specific picture of what's happening on the ground right now.
Yes, exactly. And there are all different kinds of sensors in this network, each one with its own job. You have smart buoys in rivers and coastal areas with things like pressure recorders and wave sensors. Then you have water level sensors that are deployed in flood-prone areas, and they use pressure or ultrasound to detect rising water.
It's like having a tiny little weather station right there in the water, sending back information all the time.
Yeah, pretty much.
That must be incredibly useful for giving people a heads up.
It is, and we can't forget about the smart sewer systems.
All right.
They monitor the water levels in the pipes, and that helps predict and prevent urban flooding, when the drainage system gets overwhelmed.
So we're not just monitoring the natural waterways, we're also keeping an eye on the infrastructure in our cities. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And what's really amazing is that this network of sensors provides real-time information, so we can respond much faster and in a more targeted way. It's not just, okay, a flood might happen. It's, okay, a flood is happening right here, right now, and it's this bad.
So it's all about speed and precision, which are both crucial in these situations.
Yes.
But we've talked about sensors on the ground. What about monitoring from above?
Well, that's where teledetection comes in. Things like satellites and synthetic aperture radar, or SAR.
Okay.
SAR is this incredibly powerful radar system that can actually see through clouds and works day and night.
Wow. So even in really bad weather, you can still get a clear picture of what's happening on the ground.
Exactly. It can map out how far the floodwaters have spread and how deep they are, which is really valuable information for rescue efforts and relief efforts. And if the weather is so bad that the satellites can't see through it, we can send up drones or helicopters to get a closer look. They can even deliver supplies or rescue people.
So we've got eyes in the sky, even in the worst conditions.
We do.
What about really, really precise, like localized data? How do we get that?
We have ground-based electromagnetic sensors for that.
Okay.
They give us hyper-accurate measurements of things like water levels and how much moisture is in the soil. That helps us target flood mitigation efforts, make them as effective as possible.
So we have sensors on the ground, satellites and radar in the sky, drones, and these super precise ground-based sensors. It's like a multi-layered defense system against floods.
That's a great way to put it. And there's one more piece of technology we haven't talked about yet. Smart cameras.
Smart cameras, how do they work?
These are AI-powered cameras that are specifically designed to keep an eye on water levels and coastal conditions. They use image processing and pattern recognition so they can actually detect rising water, sometimes even before a human would notice.
So they're constantly analyzing what they're seeing, looking for any little change that might be a sign of a flood.
Exactly. And some of them even use infrared so they can see in the dark. That's really important in coastal areas where the tides can change quickly.
Wow, cameras that can see in the dark to protect us from floods. Pretty impressive.
It is. And they can detect changes in the waves and the tides, too. So they can act as an early warning system for those coastal areas. It's like another set of eyes, always watching for potential danger.
So it sounds like we're building quite a technological arsenal here to fight these floods. AI predicting, sensors tracking, teledetection monitoring, and now smart cameras. Incredible.
It is. But it's important to remember that all this technology, while it's incredibly powerful, it's not perfect. Flash floods can be pretty unpredictable.
So even with all this technology, there's still challenges, right?
Oh, yeah. One of the biggest challenges is that we need continuous monitoring. We need to be proactive and have these technologies deployed and gathering data before the flood even happens.
So it's not enough to just react. We have to be prepared in advance.
Exactly. And that takes investment. You need the infrastructure, the coordination.
Right. Are there any other challenges we should be thinking about?
Well, another challenge is making sure that all the data from all these different sources, the sensors, the satellites, the cameras, the AI predictions, making sure it all comes together, that we can make sense of it all and use it to make decisions in real time.
So it's not just about having data, it's about understanding it and using it effectively.
Exactly.
Wow, this has been really eye-opening. I'm ready to dive even deeper. So tell me, how is all of this data actually used to protect people and their property?
Well, let's talk about early warning systems and rapid response mechanisms. These can really mean the difference between staying safe and a disaster.
I'm all ears.
So imagine this. You have these sensors all along a river,
Okay.
and they detect that the water level is rising.
Uh-huh.
That data goes straight to a central monitoring system.
So we have this like live feed of what's going on.
Right, and this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
The system can actually trigger alerts automatically,
Oh, wow.
like sending text messages or emails to people who live in the area that might flood.
It's like a high-tech Paul Revere,
Yeah,
The
exactly.
flood is coming.
Exactly, but much faster and way more precise.
Right.
And it's not just residents who get alerted.
Oh.
Emergency responders get them too, so they know exactly where to send help.
So it's not just warning people, it's coordinating the response, too.
Exactly. And with AI analyzing all that data,
Uh-huh.
the alerts can be even more targeted.
How so?
Well, imagine the system could figure out who's most vulnerable, like
Wow.
people in low-lying areas or folks who have trouble getting around.
So it's like tailoring the response to the specific needs of the
Oh,
community?
exactly. That's the idea.
Wow, that's amazing.
And all this real-time data,
Yeah.
it can also be used to adjust flood control measures. Think about like opening or closing gates on dams
Oh, wait.
or diverting water flow to try to minimize the impact.
So we're not just reacting to the flood, we're actually managing the water.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. And as this technology keeps getting better, we can start being even more proactive.
Okay.
Imagine a city could use AI to analyze all the past flood data
Mm-hmm.
and then use that information to plan the city better, design the infrastructure to be more resilient.
So we're talking about cities that are built to withstand floods from the ground up.
That's the goal. And it's not just new construction either.
Right.
You can retrofit older buildings and infrastructure with smart sensors and other technologies to make them more flood resistant.
This all sounds so futuristic and hopeful, but I want to step back for a second and talk about the limitations. Are there any downsides we need to be aware of?
That's a really important point to bring up.
Yeah.
Technology is a powerful tool,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not magic. It has its limits.
So what are some of those potential pitfalls?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is data accuracy.
Okay.
These systems rely on getting good data from all these different sources.
Right.
If the data is bad or inconsistent, then the predictions and the alerts won't be reliable.
It's like garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So data quality is really crucial.
For sure. For sure. What?
Then there's the issue of accessibility.
Uh-huh.
We need to make sure that these flood mitigation tools are available to everyone.
Right. Not just the wealthy communities.
Exactly. Everyone deserves to be protected.
I completely agree. What about privacy?
That's a big one, too.
Yeah.
These systems collect a lot of data about our environment and sometimes even our personal behavior.
Right.
We need to have clear rules in place to protect that data from being misused.
So we don't want to sacrifice our privacy in the name of flood protection.
Exactly. It's a balancing act.
Definitely. And at the end of the day, technology is just one piece of the puzzle, right? We can't forget about things like good planning, community engagement, and really understanding the local environment.
I completely agree. We need to think holistically,
Yeah.
integrate technology into a broader strategy for resilience.
So it's not just about technology. It's about
Mhm.
using technology wisely along with other approaches.
Yes, to build truly resilient communities.
That makes sense. So technology is incredibly promising, but it's not a quick fix.
Mm.
We need a balanced approach that recognizes both the strengths and the limitations.
I agree, and maybe even more importantly, we have to remember that technology keeps advancing.
Mm-hmm.
What's cutting edge today might be old news tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we need to be adaptable, always learning and finding new ways to improve.
So it's a process of constant improvement.
Exactly. We always need to be asking ourselves, how can we do better? How can we use technology more effectively to protect both people and the planet?
That's a great point. So as we wrap up this part of our conversation, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the future of flood mitigation? What are you most excited about?
Well, one area that I think is really fascinating is machine learning and predictive analytics.
Okay.
We're moving beyond just reacting to floods to actually anticipating them.
Wow.
Imagine a system that could analyze weather patterns, soil moisture, even social media data to predict flash floods with amazing accuracy.
That would be incredible. It would change everything.
It would, and we're also seeing a lot of progress in sensor technology.
Oh, like what?
Well, new sensors can detect tiny changes in water pressure or even vibrations in the ground.
Wow.
So we're getting earlier and earlier warning signs.
That's amazing. And it seems like all of this technology is becoming more widespread.
It is, and that's another thing I'm really excited about.
What's that?
The fact that these technologies are becoming more accessible to communities all over the world, no matter their resources.
That's great news.
It is. There are low-cost sensors and open-source data platforms now that's making a huge difference.
That's fantastic. Are there any other developments that you're particularly excited about?
Definitely. I'm really interested in the growing movement toward nature-based solutions for flood mitigation.
Nature-based solutions, what does that mean?
It means working with nature to reduce flood risk.
Okay.
So, for example, restoring wetlands and floodplains, those areas can absorb a lot of excess water,
Right.
and that helps to lessen the impact of floods.
So instead of always trying to control nature, we're learning to work with it.
Exactly. And when we combine these nature-based solutions with all the advanced technology we've been talking about, we can create communities that are even more resilient and sustainable.
That's a great point, it sounds like. Despite all the challenges, we're making real progress in mitigating the effects of flash floods.
I think so. I'm optimistic that we can create a future where communities around the world are better prepared for climate change, if we keep innovating, collaborating, and working together.
That's a hopeful thought.
Yeah.
This has been an incredibly informative discussion. I'm eager to hear your final thoughts as we wrap up our deep dive. It really is amazing to see how much progress we've made when it comes to understanding and dealing with the threat of flash floods.
Yeah.
From predicting those go-to-freeze to having all these smart sensors and cameras, it's clear technology is making a huge difference.
It really is. It's a remarkable change. And I think what's even more exciting is that we're moving towards a more holistic approach.
Yeah.
It's not just about building bigger walls and dams anymore.
Right.
We're thinking about how to work with nature, how to design smarter cities, how to help communities become more resilient.
It's a complex problem.
Right.
So it needs a complex solution.
Exactly.
And, as we've been talking about, technology is a really important part of that solution, but it's not the only part.
Right.
We can't just rely on technology alone. We need to combine it with good planning, community engagement, and a deep understanding of the local environment.
I completely agree. It's about integrating technology into a broader strategy for flood resilience, using the best of both worlds, human ingenuity and the power of technology to create a safer future.
So as we wrap up our deep dive today, what's the most important message you want our listeners to take away?
Well, I think the main message is that even though the threat of flash floods is very real and it's growing, we're not helpless.
Right.
We have the knowledge, we have the tools, we have the resources to make a difference. It's about being proactive, staying informed, and being prepared.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power. And one thing that's really stuck with me from this conversation is that even small steps can make a big difference.
I agree. Every step we take, whether it's as individuals or as communities or even at a national level, every step we take towards building resilience helps create a safer future for everyone.
So what's one thing our listeners can do today to become more aware and more prepared for floods?
I'd say the first step is to understand your own local flood risk. Contact your local government or emergency management agency and find out if your area is prone to flooding.
Okay.
Learn about the evacuation routes, the emergency shelters, and what you can do to protect your home and your family.
That's a great starting point. And I think beyond just preparing as individuals, it's also important to talk about flood resilience in our communities.
Yeah.
Talk to your neighbors, get in touch with local officials, advocate for policies that prioritize flood mitigation and adaptation.
I couldn't agree more. It's through these conversations and collective action that we can really create change. And remember, it's not just about protecting ourselves from floods. It's about creating a more sustainable and resilient future for everyone.
Well said. And on that note of hope and collective action, we'll wrap up this episode of the Prevent Project podcast. We hope this deep dive into the world of flash floods and all the technologies that can help us has been informative and given you things to think about, maybe even inspired you to take action. Stay safe, stay informed, and stay engaged.